to wordlessly be a dildo for Jennifer Lawrence. I could not believe it.
Let me quote my notes here. I said that it's a bold choice to depict black men that way in 2025, but I'll leave that for the black men to unpack.
You know what?
It's Des.
It's D.
And you're listening to It's Really That Deep.
D, it's been a crazy 2 weeks, but London Film Festival has now ended. How do you feel now that it's over?
I feel sad, to be honest. It was very, very crazy. I was literally fighting for my life, trying to juggle work, other commitments, editing, and then also attending screenings at 8 a.m. Sometimes as late as like until 10:30, I think, for one of them. It was obviously crazy, but it was just such a great experience. I watched so many interesting stories from around the world. I met some really interesting people from around the world. It was just a great atmosphere. What about you?
You did more late night screenings than me. I don't know about all this 10:30 business you're talking about, but I did do a lot of early mornings and I struggled with that. I think in the future I would try to avoid that in my schedule if I can. It was really like very affirming for me, very dysfunctional, very stressful sometimes, but very affirming for me. It was so cool to be around a bunch of other people that are just into the stuff I'm into casually. And even seen a lot of people that I've only ever seen online, whether it's film critics, whether it's writers, whether it's filmmakers, whether it's like film updates on Twitter. So yeah, I'm very happy that we did it. Now we're going to talk about Die My Love. It has been described as a black comedy drama film. It's directed by Lynn Ramsey from a screenplay she wrote with Enda Walsh and Alice Birch. It's based on a 2012 novel of the same name. The story is you have a character called Grace, played by Jennifer Lawrence, who is a young mother who develops postpartum depression, and alongside her partner Jackson, Robert Pattinson, she enters into psychosis. They move from New York City to Jackson's rural childhood home in Montana in search of a quieter life. As they adjust to their new surroundings and become parents, she struggles with feelings of isolation and psychological distress. She does stuff like shooting their dog. Well, the dog that he brings home, I think his uncle shoots himself. She has all these visions of horses and this man on a motorcycle. She sleeps with this man. I don't know if it's real or not. All sorts of things happen. He's seeing her while now. He tries to get her to get some help. Then he proposes to her. They get married. But then after the wedding, she takes the baby and walks all the way down the street. Many times she tries to climb out of moving cars. There's just a lot going on. Ultimately, by the end of the film, she takes off her clothes, goes into the forest and sets things on fire and walks in. And then Jackson goes after her. And I think that's the last thing we see is that she's naked in the forest. Fire is starting to consume her and he's behind her. And that's the end of the film. D, was Die My Love good, bad, or mid?
Die My Love was bad. I wasn't entertained by this movie. And by the way, I'm someone who's very sympathetic to the theme here. It's actually something that controls my life decisions, actually, right? That's how important this theme is to me. So I'm a prime audience member for this movie and it didn't work for me. I think that anything this movie tried to do, Night Bitch last year did it better. And I still didn't even like that movie.
Clark it. Very bad film. Very, very bad film. In a year where I thought a lot of movies were not good, this managed to stand out as particularly bad. One of the worst things I watched at LFF. It was it felt like a waste of my time. It felt like a waste of its talent. And my time was very precious during this festival, as we've talked about. So after I watched it, I was like, should I have watched that film? It's just not a serious film. It's an unserious film masquerading as a serious film. There's so many things about it that I think are mid and bad, but in particular, I really want to highlight the use of Lakeith Stanfield in this film as something that's particularly crazy, borderline problematic. In fact, not even borderline.
He's basically a dildo.
He's a dildo.
He's a dildo in this movie.
D, I literally looked at the person I was watching this film with. I said, Lakeith Stanfield is Jennifer Lawrence's character's dildo in the film.
Yeah. It's not subtle.
What was going on in this movie? Like you said, everything he tries to do with postpartum depression, Night Bitch did better. And whilst I thought that movie was flawed, I thought the central performance was good. And I thought the movie was kind of okay. Also, very importantly, I believed some of the characters in that movie. I don't believe anybody in this damn I love. I don't believe Jennifer Lawrence is some woman in rural Montana losing her mind. I don't believe she's pregnant when they show her pregnant. I don't believe Robert Pattinson is her rural husband, American husband, not with whatever accent he
Oh
was doing
God,
in this
yeah.
film. I don't believe any of it. I don't believe this woman's child would have been taken away from her a long time
Long
ago.
time ago.
Long time ago. From when she was waving a gun around in the house in the evening with the baby there, leaving knives with the baby, shooting the dog. Like, let's be serious now. Let's actually be serious. Also, him proposing to her after she had that episode with the baby, I was like, what is going on here? Like, sometimes I was like, okay, is it all supposed to be surrealist, so I shouldn't take things too literally, it's high art? And then I'd be like, no, this film doesn't deserve that. It doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt.
So one of the things I hate about this movie the most is the fact that, at least with Night Bitch, there were conversations about what was contributing to the postpartum depression, i.e. the unfair division of labor, right? This movie doesn't even have that to say. Like, for the first hour, it was almost like they were saying, if Jennifer Lawrence just gets the sex that she wants, then that will solve her postpartum depression. And I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that.
Oh, I even forgot about that. I forgot about her constantly begging Robert Pattinson.
It was ridiculous.
No. I will say that I did get the impression they were trying to make some kind of weaponized incompetence points with Jackson, like him bringing that dog after she said we need a cat in this house.
Yes, I see that.
So in some ways, like, he is messing with her in his own useless way.
But the reason why I feel like it doesn't properly land that point is because when she goes completely nuts, right, and they finally, after like an hour and a half, send her to a hospital, we see that Robert Pattinson's character does pick up all of that responsibility, and it doesn't even show him necessarily struggling under the pressure of that.
It's true, she comes back home and the house
everything was clean. So I was like, okay, so he's literally have it in my notes that, okay, so he wasn't demonstrating weaponized incompetence then, because a guy who's demonstrating weaponized incompetence, if she was coming back from the hospital, best believe that house would have been upside down.
Or he would have found another woman to come and
Yeah, all that stuff. But he didn't do that. So I was like, so what's the point of this movie then? You have nothing to say. There's no story here.
That is the theme of the film. You have nothing to say.
Yeah.
So many women came together to make this film, from the writers to the directors to the original novelist, and all they had to say was nothing and use Lakeith Stanfield as a dildo.
And the thing is, like, I don't want to be problematic in the sense that I don't want to imply that wealthy women don't have issues with this, because they do, right? But I wonder if it's because of the wealth aspect here. Maybe they genuinely don't know what it is to be a woman that is suffering postpartum and is in the economic situation that Jennifer Lawrence's character is in. Because remember, these people are basically homeless. They're in their family's house. Yeah? So when you've got all of those pressures on you, and then you've got postpartum depression, and then you've got a husband that's not stepping in, I feel like there should be more to say here, but maybe because they're potentially, I don't want to make assumptions, but potentially they don't have that level of strain. They don't have the fluency to discuss it.
But you see, even you saying that, like, I watched this movie and I didn't even understand what level of socioeconomic class I'm supposed to be interpreting of these people. Why? Because throughout this film, once I'm supposed to be believing that they're in some backwoods, rural Montana town and Jennifer Lawrence is just this poor housewife just trying to do whatever, at the same time, they keep on talking about this novel she's writing. And also, her character's hair at all times looks like Jennifer Lawrence's hair in a hair commercial for Tresemme. Her hair at all times looks Hollywood ready. And I'm like, not even rich, wealthy women, when they're dealing with postpartum depression right after their babies are born, if they're just sitting at home alone, their hair doesn't look like this. Talk less of, I'm supposed to believe some rural poor woman, her hair is looking like this as she's crawling on the ground, rolling around in the soil. So that was also distracting. Another reason I couldn't take the film seriously, which is why I continue to say this is an unserious film masquerading as a serious film. Because it has all these abstract elements and a bit of surrealist vibes, and because, it premiered at film festivals, and it has Robert Pattinson and Jennifer Lawrence, who are considered to be serious actors, and Nick Nolte and Lakeith Stanfield, it looks at a glance like a serious prestige movie. And then you watch it and you're like, oh no, this is just silliness.
Yeah. And the one thing I will say is this movie does have one thing over Night Bitch, which is that it's obviously more beautifully shot, right? But when you have the budget I expect that from you. So I can't even really fully give you the credit for that.
Yeah, I wasn't even that gagged by its aesthetics. I'm measuring everybody's cinematography this year against films like My Father's Shadow and Hamnet and stuff like that. So I'm not that moved. I know I keep on mentioning him, but I just want to dedicate some time for specifically talking about Lakeith Stanfield's character and the black people in this movie. I'm genuinely stunned by what they did there. So as she's descending into her postpartum depression and mania, we keep seeing Grace's character have like these flashes or hallucinations of a man in a motorcycle helmet and a motorcycle riding around. And I think he's wearing dark clothes. She also sees a black horse a lot. So she sees a black horse and she sees a black man, because it's eventually revealed that this man she's seeing is played by Lakeith Stanfield. And she has some kind of like lust towards him. Then later on, we see her near a grocery store and we see the same man, but this time he's not dressed up in some motorcycle, with his black wife and their daughter, and they're getting her stuff out of I think she's in a wheelchair, out of the boot of the car or something. And then she looks at him and she just walks towards them, and they share a whole moment and they gaze at each other, and then he goes off on his way. And then later on, she walks from her home to his family's house, which is some like flashy, more bougie house that he has, somewhere in the middle of nowhere as well. So we're supposed to believe these black people are staying in this bougie house in the middle of nowhere in rural Montana. Okay. And again, with him saying no words, he doesn't speak a single word in this film, if I'm not mistaken.
Because he's a dildo. Dildos don't speak.
She then goes to go and he comes out of his house where his wife and his baby are. He goes to the back shed of this house in the middle of nowhere. He takes off his pants. Yeah. She uses him as a dildo. He still doesn't say a word. And then next thing we see, Robert Pattinson's Jackson is roaming around wondering where is his wife. Is she with her dildo? And we either don't see him again after that, or the next time we see him, he's another hallucination or another glance of him just standing in the meadow. I was stunned. I was stunned, not just because of the explicit dildo usage of this black man in this film, but also because of all people to cast. Lakeith Stanfield, one of the more interesting, eccentric, cool actors in Hollywood you could get just in general, regardless of race. That is all you call him to do, to wordlessly be a dildo for Jennifer Lawrence. I could not believe it.
Let me quote my notes here. I said that it's a bold choice to depict black men that way in 2025, but I'll leave that for the black men to unpack.
You know what?
Let me come out of black men's business. This one's for y'all.
Facts. I can't be keeping too much. I can't stop thinking about the fact that it's a bunch of white women that wrote this, directed this, cast this, acted in this, and they all came together and said, let Lakeith be our dildo.
Right, let me jump back into black men's business for 1 second, because I was thinking about this. I was like, is there a graceful way for me to interpret this? Is this just her trying to go for the exact opposite of the husband that's disappointing her? So obviously Robert Pattinson is a white man, and now she wants to go for the opposite of that, so that's a black man that doesn't talk? I don't know. And apparently it's richer than Robert Pattinson. Is that what's going on here? That's the best I can do.
So, in which case then, I would take the interpretation that he's an imaginary character. He doesn't actually exist. Or maybe he's a random man that lives in their town that she has seen in passing. And then now she's hallucinating a version of him, of this cool, suave, super rich man. Like you said, opposite of Robert Pattinson in every way. Black, super wealthy, mysterious, doesn't talk back at her, and gives her the sexual gratification that she needs. If that's the point that they're making, that is a point to be making. It's a choice. It's a choice. It's an interesting choice for the kid to participate in. But like you said, we'll leave that to the black men to address it. I was stunned when I was watching. I was like, surely something else is going to happen here. Like, maybe the second half of this movie, it suddenly switches to his point of view or something. He's going to have some kind of confrontation with her, or him and her partner are going to have a conversation. They are going to have this character do something but provide wordless sexual gratification to this white woman. And it just never happened.
It was literally giving plantation fantasies. Like, it's crazy. Like, it's absolutely wild. But again, I can't.
It's the fact that they went to the back house, our house,
Literally.
out in the back, in the fields.
In the fields, yeah.
And all you see is just like the top of his nude form above her, giving her the gratification she wants. And then that's it, you don't hear from him again. Actually, you never hear from him because he doesn't speak. I was stunned. I was stunned.
As you said, Lakeith Stanfield chose that role for whatever reason. I don't want to judge, maybe it's a bit tight in Hollywood at the moment. Maybe this was the only role that came along, but yeah, I actually don't have anything more to say about this. I agree with you, it was diabolical. I was shocked. And I said, well, this is up for black men to discuss, not my business.
This film is a representation of everything that I think is mid about quote-unquote prestige film this year. Like, y'all need to be more serious. It's not by force you have to release a film. If you don't have anything to say, don't say anything at all.
I will say, I think the worst thing about it for me is, again, there really is no story here. As in, all we see for 2 hours is Grace progressively get worse, get slightly better, get worse, get slightly better. And by the way, that does mirror the way how people can heal over time from postpartum depression. So I wouldn't be annoyed about that if they were making some stronger commentary along the way about what the causes of that are in her life. But again, the movie really has nothing to say. I really feel that the director just wanted us to watch Jennifer Lawrence descend into chaos for 2 hours without giving us any sort of emotional payoff. I'm no shade, like, I didn't care about her character at all. So when she walked into the fire, I was like, okay, finally.
No, not one bit. Like, not one bit. With all my criticisms of Night Bitch, Amy Adams got me to kind of like feel something for that character. With this woman, I was just like, exactly when is CPS going to step in? That's all I just kept on wondering. Like, so you mean this baby is still in this house? And that was it. I had nothing else whatsoever emotionally to say about that character. A bit of background context is that Martin Scorsese produced this film, and apparently initially when Jennifer Lawrence was first approached about it, she wasn't necessarily going to do it. But then obviously Martin Scorsese was involved, so she said, I'm going to do it. But again, just because something exists as a script doesn't mean you need to make it into a film if you don't actually have anything profound to say. Think about all the Hollywood talent involved in making this film that honestly will be a footnote in like film history books. I don't even expect this movie to do well this award season. And if it does, that's how I know that Hollywood is really not serious.
Yeah. Another thing about this movie which I didn't necessarily like was it does that thing where they want to tell us that this young couple have so much chemistry and they're so in love. And for the first 5 minutes, all we see is them fucking around in different places in the house. And I'm like, I know what you're going to do. You're going to use this as a jumping off point to say that, well, now they're going to have a happy family. And that never ever works for me. I'm not saying that people don't do that in real life, but I'm just saying this idea that I should be convinced of their love because they're having sex and that's the foundation on which they're going to build a family is absolutely ridiculous. So whenever I see it, I'm literally waiting for the penny to drop and for the whole thing to come crumbling down.
I also just want to note that Lynn Ramsey eventually agreed to do Die My Love only when the focus of the story was confirmed to be about it being a bonkers crazy love story rather than it's being about postpartum depression.
What?
And
what?
I'm just reading what the reporting is saying, and I'm just like, what movie did you people
love
make?
Story.
What movie did I watch?
Love.
And the crazy thing is this film is neither a successful depiction of postpartum depression nor is it a successful depiction of a crazy love story. I don't buy any of it. So y'all need to be serious. It's interesting because Jennifer Lawrence has had a child in real life, and I believe she either had just had a child or was pregnant when they were filming this.
Oh wow.
And unfortunately, I think she's a good actress in other things, but unfortunately, I wasn't feeling like she was able to tap into that with this. Whereas I do feel like Amy Adams was able to tap into something in Night Bitch from her real life.
This may go back to what you mentioned about the presentation of her, right? She's a bit too put together for me to believe that this is a woman going through severe postpartum depression. And I'm saying that as someone that has seen it up front in real life. It's not nice at all. Whereas Amy Adams' depiction convinced me, one, and I'm not saying that in a derogatory way at all, she looked more like an ordinary woman. She looks like someone that I would see just on the street, multiple times a day. And so she's able to come across in a way that's more believable in terms of the presentation of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is a failure of costuming and hair and makeup to some degree. Jennifer Lawrence shouldn't be looking like the way she does
Yeah,
in this film. And it's nothing about you say, oh, she's too pretty to play the role. That's the
yeah,
job of hair and makeup.
exactly.
Do your job.
And I'm not even saying that she's too pretty to play the role. I'm literally just saying, like, even if you're pretty, pretty people look disheveled when the time comes, right? And I just wasn't getting that. And her performance wasn't giving it either. The performance felt like cartoonish at times. It felt like this was an actress that just wants to play a bit of a kooky role. This is the sort of role I wouldn't be surprised to see Emma Stone playing, actually. I do have one or two positive things to say about the movie, though. What I did like was the use of sound to communicate overwhelm. That worked very well for me in the first 30 minutes of the film. And I'm saying this as someone who does get overwhelmed by sound. I can't stand being in super noisy, chaotic spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie goes out of its way to, first of all, we have the dog that Robert Pattinson's character brings home. And the second that dog comes, no shade, I was like, please, let's get rid of this dog. So no, like, I'm not even trying to be controversial, but when the dog finally exited the earth, I was quite happy about the loss of that. And then we also had some other sounds. We have the baby crying nonstop, which this is a recurring theme when it comes to these sorts of movies anyway. But we also had things like the mosquitoes. There's a scene where she's in the house and you can hear the super loud mosquito sound. You can hear the car being super loud. And it really helped me to feel that claustrophobic feeling. Nothing to do with Jennifer Lawrence's performance though. There are also a few quite cool visual shots where we see Grace, like, they're trying to do that camera trick where you see people slipping in and out of consciousness, and then it's up to you to figure out, okay, well, are they conscious or not? That's about it for the positive stuff for me.
That's more than I can say. I have nothing positive to say about this film, even on the technical level. I wasn't gagged by anything. I don't think it's poorly shot. Like, it doesn't look ugly or jarring to me, but I have nothing positive to say about it technically. Not on the visuals, not on the sound, not on the location. It all just washed through me.
Let's get into ratings. How would you rate Die My Love out of 10?
Die My Love is a 3 out of 10 for me.
Oh, okay.
And that's me being generous because I wanted to actually give it a 2.
Okay.
The only reason I'll give it a 3 and not a 2 is because I don't think the performances are bad. Like, I don't think they're good. I just think I'm watching mediocre direction and a boring script. But I don't feel like the actors are like straight up bad. I do think some of the crew didn't do their jobs correctly though. But you know, for me, I don't give very high scores or very low scores easily. Like, you have to be extraordinary to me or extremely painfully bad for me to drop below 3 or to go above a 7.5 for me. So this is not the worst film I've ever watched. So that's why I'm not going to give it a 2. But it is bad. It's probably my least favorite film I think I watched at LFF.
So I'm giving Die My Love 2 out of 10. It was my least favorite movie at the London Film Festival. I felt that I wasted my time. I was not entertained. Again, this subject matter is very important to me as a woman of my age as well. And I just felt like it made a mockery of it. It didn't take it very seriously. They have absolutely nothing to say about the subject matter. And that's fine. But then go and pick another movie. Then go pick a fantastical movie and do that. You don't have to do this. I did feel like the performances weren't very good. I wasn't impressed by Jennifer Lawrence. It felt cartoonish. It almost felt like she was treating it as a joke. And let me tell you, it's not a joke. Women get seriously harmed. Babies get harmed from this sort of stuff.
The crazy thing, I've heard Jennifer Lawrence say that she had postpartum depression after her baby.
And look, I feel bad in that sense because I definitely don't want to minimize what she went through. But again, and I understand that postpartum depression will look different for every woman. But as someone who has seen multiple women go through this in real life, nothing in this movie felt like what I've seen, at least. And so, yeah, I can't give it any more than a 2. And those 2 points are for the sound editing, basically. And a little bit of the cinematography, that's it.
Okay, D, does Die My Love pass the Bechdel test?
Yes, but this movie doesn't feel really like it's got anything to say about gender either. Because again, they don't get into the weaponized incompetent stuff. And the reason why I keep harping on about that is because it's so important when it comes to women's experience. Even the gender pay gap, that is typically associated with caring responsibility. Why are women doing more of the caring responsibility? It's because the men in their lives or their partners are not doing their fair share. Don't pick up this subject matter if you're not informed about how important it is for women around the world.
How does it pass the Bechdel test? Is it one of the conversations between Grace and Jackson's like female family members?
Yes. Yeah, so basically the female family members are warning her about oh, don't let the baby cry. Basically doing that thing that is really annoying where a woman would be pregnant and then women come to say, "Oh, it's going to be really hard by the way." Like this is not an appropriate time to do that.
Today we're talking about Sentimental Value, a 2025 Norwegian comedy drama film directed by Joachim Trier, who co-wrote it with Eskil Vogt. It stars Stellan Skarsgard, Renate Reins, Inga Lilius, and Elle Fanning. It basically follows a fractured relationship between an acclaimed director and his two estranged daughters, which becomes even more complicated when he decides to make a personal film about their family history. So the way the story goes is in the beginning, you see that their mom has passed away. The sisters are then forced to confront their distant dad, Gustav. They are Norwegian and they're raised in Norway, and their dad is Swedish. He was once famous, but he's now a mostly forgotten film director who mostly abandoned the family when they were still young. Nora is a very driven stage actress. She has prioritized her career over everything else. Her life is a bit dysfunctional. She has an affair with a married man, things like that. While Agnes has a more traditional life with a husband, child, a corporate job. Gustav, their dad, is convinced that this autobiographical screenplay he's written will be his ticket back to fame. He wants to tell the story of his mother who took her own life in the family home in Norway, a place that is still partially owned by him due to the trauma she endured from Nazi torture during the war. He offers the lead role to Nora, who is the daughter that is an actress, but she firmly refuses. So instead, he casts this Hollywood actress, Rachel, that is played by Elle Fanning, who he met during a retrospective of his films. So you watch them prepare for the film, you watch the sisters kind of watching the production of the film cynically somewhat. Then as you also watch it, you also find out more about why they're estranged, the family trauma, how he wasn't there for them as kids, how he continues to try and kind of manipulate them. He tries to get Agnes, his son, to be in the film, as she's kind of resistant to it. By the time you get to the end, Rachel, the American actress he cast, who has tried different things, she's dyed her hair to look like his daughter. She's trying to do a Norwegian accent. She tells him that she doesn't feel right doing the role and she wants to drop out. At the very end of the film, Nora, who has been resistant to this film this whole time, finally kind of reads parts of the script and she and Agnes kind of process it. They realize it's kind of actually about her. And the last last scene you see of the film is what looks like you're watching her attempt suicide and then be discovered by her sister's son. And then you hear cuts and then you realize that no, it is a scene from the film, which she ultimately finally agreed to make with her dad. And he smiles at her, and that's the end of the scene. Oh, I also should mention that he had a bit of a health scare towards the end of the film as well. D, is Sentimental Value good, bad, or mid?
I had such a crazy journey with this film. I actually fell asleep on the first watch when I was at a press screening. I bear in mind, I can't remember the last time I've fallen asleep for
You're
that
not like
long
me.
at, at a cinema screening, but I had seen so much commentary around it, and the movie had convinced me that something about the family dynamic would be, I would resonate with it. So I decided to give it a second chance, and I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did. And so overall, I would say that this movie is good leaning on mid because of an unforgivable first half. But the ending completely landed for me and it actually brought me to tears.
D, we are exactly in sync, which is a good and bad thing. It's always very funny when we disagree with each other because we be tussling, but it's always really interesting when we're exactly in agreement, because I always think about what journeys have we both been on in our lives that will lead us to have the exact same emotional reaction to something. Word for word, what you just said is my exact reaction to this film. This film was dragging me along. Dragging. I was like, please stop this. And obviously, because it's not in English, I have to really try and focus on it.
Yeah.
I can't watch it casually. But I was struggling to care. It's a long film. It's 160 minutes almost. like you, the first time I tried to watch it, because I was watching it as a screener, I ran out of time. I had to go and request for more time to try and watch this film again.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why are people gagging over this film? This film, I
Mm.
believe it won the Grand Prix prize at Cannes. I was like, why are they gagging over this film? It's dragging. Like, the performances are good, the cinematography is okay, but it's dragging. And then from when we get to the point where Rachel, Elle Fanning's character, comes to meet Gustav to tell him she can't play the role, till the ending, and that final scene destroyed me. When I realized what they did in that final scene, I literally like stood up and and I was clapping. Like
Wow.
I and it also moved me to tears. I thought that was such a beautiful ending that I didn't see coming. I don't know how I didn't clock it. They literally tell you after she reads the script that, oh, how did he know about my suicide attempt? So I know he knows, and I know that the script has evolved to being a story about her. But when I was watching that final scene, I thought we were watching her reattempt suicide, because you could tell across the course of the movie she wasn't in the best state of mind. She was still struggling with a lot of things. And I was thinking, okay, if this is how this movie ends, I don't think that's that profound. But what they did instead, where it's actually kind of an interestingly almost happy ending, where they decide to process their grief together, and the switcheroo they thought, I thought it was actually kind of beautiful. That ending makes it a very, very good film, and I don't say that
Okay.
easily.
So here's the thing though. So I think what's interesting is we have the same overall opinion, but the ending I didn't care for actually. That final scene I didn't care for it.
Overall, I liked it. It's very Scandinavian, the whole film. I'm not gonna lie. It's not a movie I will easily rewatch, but I think I will rewatch it actually. I think
Yeah.
it is a film to watch a second time. And I understand why it's called Sentimental Value.
Yeah.
And I do understand why they responded well to it. I can. This film has one of the longest standing ovations of all time. It had
Yes.
19 minutes. Watching the structure of the film, I understand why it'll be like that. Because when I first heard that, I was like, over what? An almost 3 hour movie of them just being miserable in Norway. But then, because of the way the ending kind of like wakes you up, I understand why people would just stand up and be like, oh, bravo, bravo. Like, I
I
get
think
it.
I think there's something else going on. So basically, when I was deciding about whether I wanted to rewatch it or not, I was ready to discount this movie and say this is once again film critics getting a hard on because there's a film within a film.
I agree. I was also thinking, okay, this is like the La La Land thing again.
Yeah.
Hollywood is obsessed with films about Hollywood.
But I'm so glad I gave it another chance. So let's talk about the themes. So the first theme is depression. What did you think about the depiction of depression in the movie?
I can't lie, while watching it, I was kind of bored by the depiction of depression because I didn't find it to be
Yeah.
unique or new in any way.
Yep.
And I wasn't really properly feeling like I was invited to understand what causes this particular character's depression. So I
Exactly.
wasn't that moved by it. Towards the end, where they basically revealed that she had to become a parent to her sister, and in some way she kind of sacrificed her own stability for the sake of her sister. I was like, okay, I'm not mad at that. I wasn't mad at that, but I wish we
Mm,
had gotten to the point a
much
bit more
earlier.
sharply. Yeah.
One of the big issues I had with this movie is that scene starts at 1 hour 50 minutes. Until that point, this movie was telling me over and over again that this woman is depressed and her life's a disaster. And I'm like, hold on, her life's a disaster based on your understandings of what a woman's life should look like. Because I don't believe that a woman's life is successful just because she's married or just because she has children, I just wasn't buying the depression thing. Because I'm like, okay, fair enough, you're having an affair. Okay, so are so many people. I'm not trying to defend it, but a lot of people are having affairs. Okay, your career's kind of messed up because you've got anxiety. Not trying to downplay that, I understand. The movie spent almost 2 hours trying to convince me that this woman is depressed because her life's a disaster. And I just wasn't buying it because I don't buy into the idea that a woman is successful just because she's married and she has children. I know plenty married women, plenty women with children whose lives are messed up because they are depressed actually, because there's so many reasons why you can be depressed in that situation. So the movie, I didn't connect with it for literally 2 hours. So it was a horrible watch for me to begin with. I think another thing worth pointing out here is the theme of fatherhood. Now, one of the reasons why I didn't connect with the movie for 2 hours is because I didn't care for a single thing that was relating to that father. And that's the reason why the ending scene didn't work for me. And the reason why is because this movie doesn't want us to like the father, Loki. Yeah? Unless you're someone who subscribes to a very like misogynistic, egotistical man's sense of humor, you're not gonna like this guy, right? And that's fine. I don't have to like him. But what I didn't like is he gets everything he wants in this movie, and no one really sits him down to tell him, like, do you understand that you're ruining so many people's lives around you? Everybody in this movie is reacting to this man. The trauma in this movie is a response to this man. At no point does he get confronted properly. At no point does he not get his way. Literally, as you mentioned, he wanted Agnes's son to be in his movie, and he gets his own way in the end, even though she didn't want to do that, right? So I'm not pretending that these men don't exist, and I'm also not pretending that there aren't men that go around ruining women's lives and get away with it. I know for a fact it happens. That's the reason why the world's so messed up. But I didn't care for it in the movie, and I especially didn't care for it when they want me to cry at this ending scene where the man has gotten his way again. It didn't work for me.
It's so interesting. I had the exact opposite reaction. So, on the subject of fatherhood, this movie parallels My Father's Shadow for me, which is one of my favorite films of the year. In that, it's also a story about like an estranged father with his two children who are close, and like one of them has essentially had to become a parental figure to the other because of his absence. And My Father's Shadow has a very sad ending. But to get to the point of sadness, the characters do get to bond and understand their dad a lot more. This film has kind of like a happy ending in that like he gets his happy ending. But I don't feel like we really get to really spend proper time to see these characters understand each other, like parent to child, or importantly, as you said, for him to be truly held accountable by them.
Mhm.
Even though I don't feel like they tell him to his face multiple times how he's failed them. It's just that his character doesn't care, right?
After they
So,
do what he wants them to do again.
but ultimately, and this is the thing about film, and this is the thing about art, and how and why I don't hide how subjective I am as a film watcher. Even despite all of that, it just works for me. I can't explain it to you. It just works. The combination of the acting performances, the sound, the music, the lighting. It was so emotionally stirring. The last 20 minutes of the film are some of my favorite last 20 minutes of film I've watched this year. From the moment where we realize that Nora has been raising Agnes to the point Rachel decides the film is not right and Nora does it and she's once again kind of being self-sacrificial in this film, to the actual exchange of glances between father and daughter, it all just what I can't explain to you why, because I agree with you morally on what you're saying, but I just thought it was such a beautiful moment of film.
There's no
And
development from any of them. They start one way and they end the same way. They don't even really go on a journey. Look, if anything, maybe Nora goes on a bit of a journey where she tries to be selfish. Well, quote unquote selfish. I don't think she was being selfish actually, but
no,
you know what I mean.
yes, I do. I think what also makes a huge difference for me is I am obsessed with the Stellan Skarsgard performance. Even when I didn't care about this movie in the first 90 minutes or so, the only thing that was holding my attention was his performance. So I generally tend to be a stan of him as an actor. Like I love him in the Dune movies and stuff like that. So I am biased. I just think he's a great actor. And this year I felt like a lot of leading male performances have been made. And I just thought he was very hypnotizing on screen the entire time he was there,
Mm-hmm.
including those last couple of moments. So even though his character is absolutely an asshole, I believed him completely and I felt sucked into the movie by his character. I don't know any of these Norwegian, Swedish people, but he pulled me into the universe of the film every time it was on screen. So at the end, when he gets what he wants, basically, weirdly enough, I match his energy and I feel satisfied that I have gotten what I want. Don't ask me to
Wow.
explain it. That is the beauty of film. This is how sometimes I react to film. And it works so well for him. I am actively rooting for him now for award season to sweep. Like, I was so impressed. But I understand all of your criticisms of that character and how that story resolves itself.
This is controversial. His performance wasn't bad, but it didn't blow me away.
How
I
did
can't like because I'm actually really curious because everyone's saying, "Oh my god, it's the performance of the year," and I'm like, why? Like, and to be fair, I'm not criticizing his acting ability. What I'm also criticizing is the flatness of the character. So for me, if a performance blows me away, it's gonna be because either there's a flat character, maybe that's evil, for example, and it's executed to such a high standard, or there's enough range demonstrated to where I can say, you know what, for you to be able to execute all of that range and convince me of all of those storylines, you must be a good actor. I don't think any applied here for me.
For me, there was a lot of subtlety to his performance. Even things like in the middle of the film, when you're watching him doing the table reads and stuff like that with Rachel, and I think there's a character called Ingrid, the actors that have been cast, even though you can tell he's not satisfied exactly with who he's cast. There's just little choices that Stellan would make with how he was watching them read their lines, as in universe. I can't put it in words, but I just was so captivated by the little things he would do with his face as he was watching them. Like, I believed I was watching a man who was watching an American actress playing his daughter, thinking she's playing his mother, even though he really wants his daughter to be the person playing the role. Like, I just believed it. I felt the character so clearly. Even the scenes where he would meet up with his former collaborators or his brother or whoever that guy was and talk about where he currently sits in the film industry. Maybe it was Stellan inserting some of his own personal experience as an actual, member of the industry in the real world. But there was something about it that I just thought it was very technically nuanced and well done.
As I mentioned, the storyline with the father didn't work for me. The storyline that sat on my tear ducts was the storyline with the sisters. And this storyline had me crying, literally, not crying, but maybe like teary for 20 minutes. And the reason why, and I can feel myself getting teary again, is the analysis of how birth order is so important, more than society realizes. And the reason why I recognize it is because I can resonate with both of the sisters in the sense that I'm the youngest sister in terms of like my nuclear family. And I was in that position of Agnes. I'm acutely aware that if it wasn't for my older sisters, I wouldn't be able to live the lifestyle I live now. And look, I'm going again. That's crazy.
Aww.
Yeah, it's made me get teary again. And so when we have that scene at 1 hour 50 where Agnes and Nora are having that heart to heart, it completely ruined me. And as you can see, I've still been thinking about it days after watching it. And I was so moved by it that after watching, I said to my sister, look, I've just seen this film and it so accurately portrays some of the dynamics we've had growing up. And I would love if you would come to watch it with me and discuss it after. And she's agreed that she will come and do it. So I'm really excited about that.
Oh, not you making yourself watch these 3 hours again.
I know, which is crazy, right? After falling asleep for 30 minutes in my first screening. The other part I want to highlight here is that in some ways I can also relate to Nora. I have young children in my family who, when they came around, maybe the mums were not so supported, right? So what that means is that as a young child, I had to step up. And so I know what that looks like to be parentified as well. And so when you can relate to both sides of that story, like I was literally completely obliterated by that scene. And to just see that depicted so well by a family that I should have nothing in common with ultimately, because there are a bunch of Norwegian people, living in Scandinavia, very different lifestyle to me and my Caribbean family. But it worked so, so well for me. And I'm so glad that I stuck through it to get to that point.
I was thinking about you as I was watching when I got to the final part of the film, but I didn't know how deep it would hit you. So yeah, it's always very beautiful to see when film can really just get
Yeah.
at you in that way, right? Yeah, I think what it does with the sister scene is really important. Again, why I was so frustrated it took us so long to get to the point. And I don't believe that the build up is that justified. I don't believe you can build up to the exact same sentiment in 55 minutes as opposed to 100 and whatever it was minutes. I personally, I like every single element of his family treatment. I don't really have any notes, to be honest, except for like it's too bloody long. I want to talk very briefly about how it addresses celebrity culture, because at first I was like, why did Netflix sponsor this movie? Why am I seeing Netflix splashed?
But like the product placement was crazy.
Yeah, I found it very strange, but the film is not distributed by Netflix as far as I know, so I like this looks a bit too explicit. But anyway, I was wondering about that, and I was like wondering what's the point of this Elle Fanning character? And okay, she's just some like Ariana Grande, Jennifer Lawrence, little starlets. Okay, and so what? And I now understand, and I've seen some people write about the film that her character, just like the many other women in this character, and I do appreciate how different women are depicted in this film, she's there to also almost kind of subvert your expectations and subvert the things that Gustav is projecting early on when he's making all these comments about actors and actresses And basically, like, I feel like it's even gendered his criticism that they're vain and they're folly and they have no care about their craft or whatever. And her character really doing her best to try and embody this character, that her director is basically lying to her by not making it
Yeah.
honest to her who she's actually supposed to be playing.
Yeah.
And she figures it out by herself with her own research and her own empathy. And she does everything she can do, but then she ultimately realizes that this is not right for her. And she says it to him. I actually thought there was something really simply beautiful about that. Like, I thought the way they humanized that kind of airhead Hollywood starlet, there was something actually quite sweet and beautiful about it. And once again, I just appreciate showing different types of female characters, from the very austere to the very soft, and showing how all of them have their own ways of sacrificing and their own ways of approaching things with care. So I just wanted to know that, like, I really liked that bit of writing. I didn't think that's where it was going, and when it arrived, I was like, oh, that's kind of different. I like that.
Okay, so ratings. What would you give Sentimental Value out of 10?
If you asked me this question for 80% of this movie, I would have said maybe a 4 out of 10, that this film was boring me out of my mind. Now I'll give it a strong 7. I think that ending is such a master stroke that it really elevates the film for me.
Yeah, so as you can tell, this movie really moved me emotionally. Um, I really hated the first 1 hour 50 minutes though. When I did the rewatch for the first 50 minutes or so, I was like, so they've wasted my time again. Then I was right this whole time that this is just a film in a film movie, and that's the reason why the film bros love it. But as I mentioned, that scene between the sisters, it was such a strong redemption. So for me, I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's one of my favorites from the film festival now.
Same, same. I think also, like, across the board, there's no bad acting in this film. So I
Yeah.
also just want to note that. And I think it's a well directed film, in that I feel like the filmmaker, he had an intention with what he was trying to do, and for the most part he got it out of his actors, even though it dragged
Hmm.
on too long.
Hmm.
The film is written by a man and a woman, and I can feel a woman's touch in the
Yeah.
writing.
Hmm.
So I also wanted to note that.
So I really enjoyed the soundtrack for this movie. It's actually something I've started listening to on Spotify.
Oh my
And
god, you're a
because,
stan.
yeah, well, I wouldn't go that far. I noticed that the soundtrack's very black, and that's probably why I actually loved a lot of the music throughout the film. I don't know why that was the choice, but it was interesting. And then the final thing I have to say is that I'm very jealous of the Swedish and the Norwegian speakers, because I know this movie was doing some cool things with the language, but I just don't have the skills to pick up on it. So I would love to see someone who speaks the languages explain what was really going on there when they were switching between languages, because I do know a tiny bit of Norwegian, like literally how to say hello in Norwegian and Swedish because of travel and stuff. And I noticed that they were switching between the languages, but I couldn't figure out the logic behind why that was happening. I would love to know more.
Language is such a good point, because again, as I was watching this film, I kept on thinking about how elements of it reminded me of My Father's Shadow. And there's so much of My Father's Shadow that hits me extra hard, because I understand the nuances of everything they're saying when they're speaking Yoruba and Nigerian pidgin English, that I think is lost in the subtitles. And I kept on thinking, I know things are going over my head in the subtitles, in how the father and the daughters
Yeah,
are communicating to each other, especially because, um right, if I'm not mistaken, Stellan Skarsgard, who is Swedish, he's speaking Norwegian in the movie, but his character is supposed to be like a Swedish Norwegian man or something
yeah.
like that. So, like, and there's commentary about, like, even the accents that they're using and the regionality and the switch. So I know the language switching and the accent use is very important, but unfortunately I can't catch that. And I know there are people that are going to appreciate this movie at a higher level of depth than we can. I agree.
There's does sentimental value pass the Bechdel test?
With flying colors, I'm not even sure if it passes
The
the
reverse.
equivalent of a Bechdel test for men, but it
Yeah.
definitely passes for women. We have many, 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 many scenes of Nora and Agnes speaking about their childhood, their life experiences, motherhood, their careers, supporting each other, the times when they weren't able to support each other. I believe we also see Elle Fanning's character, Rachel, interacting directly with Ingrid, who is another actress that is in the film, and they're talking about like getting accents right and stuff like that. So yeah, film passes the Bechdel test with flying colors. So while Stellan Skarsgard is my favorite performer in this film, and I genuinely am actively rooting for him this award season, and I think for his performance, I really want to highlight Inga Lilias, who plays Agnes, who is the more quote unquote responsible sister, the more traditional sister. I found her performance kind of very heartbreaking sometimes, and for that, beginning of that emotional whammy of an ending arc to really work. Of course, Renate Rains has to do a great job as Nora to understand that, oh, she has been parentified. But I think kind of the mixture of the guilt and the care and the love and the regrets that Inga has to present as Agnes when you're finding out those scenes are so important, and she does it so beautifully. Like, that was part of the reason I became so overwhelmed with emotion. So I think she's actually probably my favorite female performance in the film. I also thought Elle Fanning as Rachel, I actually really enjoyed what she did in the film towards the end as well. Generally, I'm a big fan of all the acting in this movie.
Okay, so the next movie I want to discuss is Palestine 36. It was really important for me that I watched this movie at the film festival for a number of reasons, and I have to say I was really happy that I got to see it. I really did enjoy this movie. Palestine 36 is Anne-Marie Jassier's historical drama centered on 1936 mandatory Palestine. This is roughly 14 years after the Ottoman Empire collapsed. The film focuses in on a unified Palestinian uprising and rising Jewish immigration, intensifying conflict under British colonial rule. So, in terms of what happens, we are immediately transported into a very chaotic era for the region where you have Ottoman influences, you also have the British who are trying to impose colonial rule. In fact, Palestine was considered a British mandate at the time. You also have the arrival of European Jews who are fleeing the Nazi regime in Germany. And the film focuses on a character called Yusuf, who is from a rural part of Palestine. And we see that he's drifting between his rural home and the cities of Palestine, including Jerusalem, and also for a small period, I believe, in Ramallah. And what happens throughout the movie is we see more and more Jewish people arriving, and we see that the Palestinian people are being essentially coerced by the British to cede land under the guise of compromise, basically, under the guise of, well, you're part of the British Empire now, and you need to help us help them, basically. But at the very same time, while that's happening, we see that the Palestinian people are becoming increasingly frustrated by worsening abuses, colonial abuses by the British, and the entire movie explores this very complex, a very tragic history. The thing I love the most about this movie, which I wasn't expecting, was the extent to which the movie focuses in on the British colonial impact here. As someone who grew up in the UK and has very much been exposed to many, British media forms and such, I can't actually tell you that I've seen so many films or even TV shows that show the true extent of British colonial rule. And even in the UK, a lot of people still think that colonialism was just building roads and building schools for people. But this movie completely destroys that narrative. While I'm used to seeing other atrocities in history being well depicted in film and TV, such as Stalin's Soviet Union, such as American slavery, such as Nazi Germany, I haven't necessarily seen as many accurate depictions of how brutal British colonialism was. I really did enjoy seeing somebody depict British colonial officers with the same grotesqueness and same ugliness that we're used to seeing with other types of empire and abuses throughout history. Something I don't think I've seen it done to this extent before. Another thing that I really liked about this movie, directed by Anne-Marie Jassir, a Palestinian director, is that she's not shying away from the nuances of Palestinian people here. I think it can be really easy with these sorts of movies to almost pretend that the core group who's being victimized here, which are the Palestinian people, that they're a monolith and that everybody was in agreement. But she doesn't shy away from the way how there's class conflict, in some ways how there's even gender conflict. And aside from Yusuf, there's a couple who I really, really loved in this movie, and they are Khulud Atef, played by Yasmin Al Masri, and Amir, her husband, who is played by Dafar Le Abdin. And basically, this couple really juxtaposes against rural Palestinian life that we see through Yusuf's eyes. Khalud is a writer, she's a high society woman, she throws lavish parties in which many of the British are invited. Amir's a local businessman, he's quite ruthless, and he's willing to do anything basically to maintain his status in society and his money. And what I really liked about them is we're able to see the way how even within the Palestinian resistance, there were different approaches. And we get to see classism here and how classism is used ultimately by the British to divide and rule over the Palestinians and ultimately take away their land. This couple also helped demonstrate some gender points here. So Khalud, again, she is a writer. She's successful. She's quite a powerful woman. But Amir is a very traditional man. He really just wants her to be quiet and sit in the corner somewhere. And we see that Khalud, maybe it's because she's a woman and how she moves through society. She's very passionate about being on the side of the Palestinian resistance and defending it through her journalism. Whereas Amir, we actually find out, was doing secret deals with the incoming Jewish people to ultimately betray the Palestinian people. And I thought that was a really interesting commentary there. Khalid, she throws a number of very lavish parties with various different British people and high society Palestinian people. And through her parties, we are exposed to the fact that she really doesn't care for the military aspect of the colonial occupation. The main military guy that we see is played by Robert Aramayo. We know him from Behind Her Eyes. Do you remember the guy who, the one who's responsible for the twist, basically?
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's in,
Interesting.
and he does very, very well playing a very ruthless British colonial officer. And he perfectly embodies the violence of the empire at the time. Just to give an example of some of the violence that we see, at one point we see a young Palestinian man who's tied to the front of a vehicle and is used as a human shield. We see community members being forced at gunpoint to expose resistance soldiers. There's a father who's forced to expose resistance weapons to save his son, and then is immediately killed. We also see Palestinian families being rounded up, caged, and left in a hot sun with no water. So again, this movie is, one, not trying to hide away from nuance, and two, it's really exposing the horrors that was British colonialism at the time. In terms of performances, as I mentioned, I thought Robert Aramayo was brilliant. I also love the performances by Yasmin Al Masri and Dafala Abdin. And we also have Yusuf, who is played by Karim Daoud Anaya, who I thought did a really good job of demonstrating through his performance, as well as the community around him, the loss that the Palestinian people are experiencing. And I think it was really, really important for me, and also I hope other audiences, to see on the big screen what was at stake here and what continues to be at stake for the Palestinian people.
Okay, you really convinced me. I wanted to watch the film anyway. If I'm not mistaken, this was the film that you and I were both supposed to watch, and then our screening got rescheduled, right?
Yes,
And the day it got rescheduled, it was initially scheduled for the 7th of October, and then it
correct,
got
yes.
rescheduled. Okay, noted. I really do want to watch. I'm going to do whatever I can to see it. I have noticed that after that snafu, that BFI has been platforming it a bit more on their page. I saw them posting today about it coming out in cinemas in the UK at the end of the month and stuff like that. So I guess I'll
Mhm.
give them that. I know the film was directed by a woman, which I love to see. What was the audience like when you were watching it? Was there a lot of women? And also, does the film, in your opinion, does the film pass the Bechdel test? And yeah, how did you feel about how the director's gaze as a woman was?
Yeah. So first of all, I was really disappointed in the turnout. And I know that is partially because of the rescheduling. I really had to fight tooth and nail to get to this screening. I really hope that people go out and support this movie. It's very, very important for all of us to understand it, because I think this is a story that isn't being platformed as much. I think you have to do a lot of digging to understand what happened even during the 1940s, much less the 1930s. And even as someone I like to do, reading around what happened to the Palestinian people, I've tried my best to educate myself. And this movie has still taught me so much that I've continued to dig into since watching. When it comes to the Bechdel test, first of all, it definitely passes. Second of all, when it comes to the female gaze, it was one of the things that immediately woke me up in the cinema. Because
Oh,
as soon as you sit down and we get into the movie, we see a woman wearing um, men's clothing, right, of the time, and she's wearing an Ottoman hat. She's wearing her husband's clothes, basically. And we immediately get into a sequence where she's explaining that, I'm an intelligent woman, I'm a writer, I'm a journalist, I'm all of these things. So I need to wear men's clothes for me to get into my flow mode. So it's just some very interesting stuff right off the bat. And then shortly after that, we see Amir come into the picture. And again, I do think the dynamic between these two was really what it helped me to understand so much of the context. And Amir immediately comes in and says to her, well, no, you can't embarrass me. Take off my clothes. And he does it in a playful way, but he's not joking. And I think it's so important for us to see that early on, because when he ultimately continues to disgrace not only his wife, but, you know, depending on how you read the movie, his own people as well, you see that this is a man who's not interested in anything except maintaining his status and his ego. And I think it's such a current and important depiction of why these men are very, very dangerous in real life.
Very intriguing. I really, really want to watch it. I'm going to do my best to watch it as soon as I can.
Definitely should. Thanks for going deep with us. Like us on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you're streaming this from.
Thanks for listening. We'll speak to you next time.